And thanks again, as I say, for joining us today. My name is Grace Corrigan. I am the employment specialist for INCIGHT. And you can keep your cameras on if you like, but please keep your audio muted while you're listening, just to kind of eliminate any kind of background noise that will kind of disturb the presentation. And then after the presentation, we are going to open it up for questions. So if you have anything while the presentation is going, any questions, please type them in the chat and we will address them as we can. So before we start, I'm just going to share a little bit about INCIGHT. We've been around since 2004. We are a nonprofit with a mission of changing hearts and minds, leveraging obstacles, and unlocking potential. We do this through two major programs. One is education, and the other one is our employment programs. And we focus on helping people with disabilities and barriers. So if you are interested in finding out more about our programs, you can go to our website, which is insight.org, or you can give us a call. So Jobs Now is actually part of the employment program. And one of the ways we connect with job seekers is through these GetAhead events, which are standalone workshops created to help job seekers from all walks of life and give them additional resources for their job search. And we hope that you're going to benefit from today's workshop. And we also have all our past workshops on our website. It's jobsnow.org. So if you want to go back there after and glean more from some of these great workshops, please do so. We also host in-person job fairs. And our next job fair is going to be on January 24th. It's a Wednesday at Southeast Works in Portland. And I'll be sending out emails towards the end of December for job seekers to register for that. So we'll get going here. And today our workshop is going to cover why you should not submit an angry application. So we're honored to have career coach Brandi Oldham with us. She is the founder of Talent Career Coaching. Unfortunately, she's been struggling with laryngitis for over a week now, and therefore she has brought on Ruthie Ditzler, a fellow career coach, with her to assist her through this hour's presentation because she figured her voice wasn't going to last that long. So I am honored to have both of you gals with us, and we're excited to hear what you have to present today. So I'm going to just go ahead and hand everything over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Grace. Yes, my voice does not normally sound like this. And thankfully for all of you, you won't have to listen to me the entire time. Ruthie's going to step in here in just a moment. But today we want to talk about angry applications. How many of you, if you've got your camera on, show of hands, have you ever heard about angry applications? Probably not many. Ruthie.
Well, I have too.
Angry applications is a concept that I actually came up with when I was struggling with my job search. So back when I worked in corporate, at one point in time, I had submitted over 250 job applications trying to get hired. I was exhausted. I was really scared. I knew that what I was trying to do wasn't working for whatever reason. And I started firing off applications left and right, trying to just land a job. So today we're going to talk about, number one, what angry applications are, but also what you can do instead. And we're going to give you some free tips and tricks to kind of help you with the job search process. So a little bit about myself. My name is Brandi. I am the owner and the founding career coach behind Talent Career Coaching. Talent Career Coaching is based in Vancouver, Washington, but we service the entire Portland metro area and beyond. We've got clients in Florida, for example. Our job is to help individuals become the best versions of themselves. We do that through education, training, and resource development. In addition to myself, I've actually got 6 other coaches who work alongside me. One of them is here today. That is Ruthie. Big thank you to Ruthie for stepping in. I thought for sure my voice would be back by today, but it's not. So Ruthie is actually going to take you through this presentation on angry applications, and then I will be here to answer questions at the very end. I will also be monitoring the chat, and we'll answer questions as I can through there as well. So I'm here for you. And after this presentation, if you wanted to go over to our website, we do have an entire page dedicated to free resources. So that's going to look like resume tips, cover letter tips. If you get the job, what to expect in your first year, other podcasts and webinars where you can hear my real voice. All of that's going to be on our website. So Ruthie, again, thank you. If you don't mind taking over from here, I will let you have it.
All right, let's get started. Yeah, and Brandy's gonna keep an eye on the chat. If I have this up on my screen, are y'all seeing that? Like, is it blocking anything? It does, okay. So yeah, I'm gonna just not look at the chat at all then, Brandy, and know that you got your eyes on there. Yeah, so let's get started. So curious, show of hands, or you can put it in the chat. You can use the chat or the raising hand emoji, or give us just a little thumbs up emoji. But how many of you have ever submitted a job application after either just like a frustrating day at work, or you're job applying and you got an email rejection, or you've been job hunting for a while and you're starting to feel kind of that sense of panic, like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to find a job. All right, so I see Jim. Yeah, so this is something I know that Brandy's done it, looks like Grace has done it, I've done it. This is something that's really common. And so we're going to talk about, why this is something that you might want to avoid, sort of what the mentality is behind this, and then, like, as Brandy mentioned, giving you some tips to avoid this in the future. So this is this is super common. I just worked with a client who just last week got a job at her dream company after, I think it was about 9 months, it sounded like, of sending angry applications. So it is something that you can move away from. You totally can land the job of your dreams. This is not going to be something that you're stuck in forever. And I think that that's the really important thing to keep in mind. Okay, so what is an angry application, right? So an angry application, this is something where you you're in a place of frustration, right? For whatever reason, whether it was a bad day at work, you got in an argument with a colleague, you're just generally kind of like burnt out and something happens that tips you over the edge. You're in a bad place, right? In a negative mindset. And so they are usually submitted in this place of desperation. It can often it can look like something like you go on LinkedIn and you're just firing off those LinkedIn quick applies where you just hit apply, and you don't have to put much thought into it. And you're just kind of firing off generic resumes and you're looking to find something different quickly, right? And the problem is that that's not going to work for you long term, and it's also not going to work for the companies that you're applying for. So here are some of the reasons why angry applications don't work, right? So it is oftentimes when you're sending out generic resumes, when you're just sending those rapid fire job applications, you're not putting a lot of thought into your approach. And so you could end up with jobs, you're applying to jobs that, one, aren't aligned with your value system, right? It might be work that you would be like, if you ended up getting the job, it'd be something that you didn't feel good about, and that's not great. Maybe you haven't done your research on the company and you don't know about the pay or the benefits or the schedule, right? So there's a lot of things that go into our work and why we choose certain employers over others. But if you're just out there firing off those applications, you might not end up with what you need. You could be applying to things that are just in general underutilizing your skills and expertise, right? You're just like, one time I remember I did an angry application and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm sick of this. I was working in a nonprofit and I was totally burnt out. I had been there for several years. And I said, instead of doing this, I just want to work at a grocery store, right? I'm going to go work at New Seasons just to have a totally different change of pace and do something completely different. Not to say that that's maybe something that I really would have actually enjoyed that, but it was not in alignment with my skill set and expertise at that moment. And you could also just land a job that really isn't of interest to you, right? If you don't put a lot of research into it, and you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, you risk, finding work that you're like, this isn't for me at all. So it's the problem is, you're getting these sort of, you feel like you're doing something proactive, you're out there, you're kind of like getting those dopamine hits when you're taking action, but that the result of that action isn't necessarily going to move you in the direction that you'd like to be headed. So why do angry applications? Why do we do this? Like, where does it come from, right? So we're coming from this place of a scarcity mindset, okay? And as you can see on the slide, a scarcity mindset is a belief that one has limited resources or is unable to provide for themselves or others, okay? This comes up a lot when people are job hunting. Job hunting is scary. You are putting yourself in a really vulnerable position. It kind of feels like sales, right? You have to sell yourself. You're like having to tell stories about yourself in interviews. You're having to like really dig deep and think a lot about like what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And that self-reflection can feel really vulnerable. And so you're really just in this place where you're dependent on other people taking a chance on you oftentimes, and that's a scary place to be. So that scarcity mindset could show up like, oh my gosh, I've been out here job hunting for months now. Like, will I ever find a job? Right? That I work with a lot of people who are in the tech industry. There's a lot going on in the tech industry right now, and there's a lot of people feeling like this. They got laid off and they're worried they're never going to find another job. Maybe this is something where you're like, okay, you're guilt tripping yourself, right? And you are just spending hours every day job searching, and you won't let yourself take a break because you feel like if you let your foot off the gas pedal, you're going to lose that one opportunity that was like the opportunity for you. And so you're just like out there grinding, right? Spending hours every day. Maybe this is something where you're starting to really feel these feelings, these like strong emotions, right? You might be feeling anxiety, you might be feeling panic, fear, just like, what's going to happen? Am I going to have enough money to like meet my needs, right? How can I survive if I can't find a job, right? So sometimes we get in these really like these headspaces where we're just kind of spiraling. We're frustrated, we feel trapped, we feel like there are no other options. And the result of that, right, with scarcity mindset is that we're going to try to take control any way that we possibly can. And the way that ends up happening is we're going to start applying to everything we can just to see if we could land anywhere else, right? That's the really common response to that feeling of not being in control when you're job hunting. So it's totally normal to feel like this is the way to kind of counteract these scary feelings. So what's the big deal about that? Here, these applications that you are putting out there when you are just, rapid firing, like kind of in panic mode, the problem is that the applications are going to be things that you did quickly, right? You're just out there, you're trying to like get as many in as you possibly can. It's likely that your responses, if you're writing a cover letter, it's probably not well written. If you have those short answer questions, likely not well written. If you are kind of tailoring or, you're making edits to your resume, it's possible that you're doing it in a really like hasty manner, and you might have typos in your resume, which reflect poorly on you. In general, you're coming from a place of low confidence. You are coming from a place of lack. Like, I haven't been able to find anything. I keep getting rejected. I'm not happy at my current work, right? So it's in general, it's sort of just like a negative space to be in. And the problem is that they're also typically quite generic. So when we're trying to be quick and get as many applications out there as we possibly can, we're not taking a lot of time to be intentional. And we're usually just saying like, oh, here's one version of my resume, like this will do, it covers most of my experience. I think that this should fit. And then you're just sending the same thing out over and over and over again. LinkedIn makes this really easy, right? LinkedIn Quick Apply, where you just upload a version of your resume or maybe a couple versions of your resume. And then when you go to apply to a position, you just click apply, you choose the version of your resume you want to send, and then you click submit. And it's just that easy, right? So theoretically, I mean, it would be pretty easy to submit hundreds of applications a day using LinkedIn Quick Apply. It's just that that's not necessarily the most effective approach. Okay. So one big problem is that recruiters also know that, right? It's like, you know that you're not putting a lot of time into your application, and the person reading it on the other end also can sense that, right? And so Brandi, who spent a lot of time, working as a recruiter, training recruiters, talks about how that was really obvious to her when she was reviewing applications, is sort of seeing things that were incomplete, right? Or seeing answers that were really not very thoughtful, getting sort of feeling this like angry undertone that comes from people when they have a crappy day at work, right? You're angry at your boss, you're like, I'm out of here, I'm gonna get on the computer and I'm gonna go work somewhere else, right? That vibe comes off when you're looking for a different position, right? The other thing about it is that if you are not tailoring your resume and you're only sending that generic resume out there, there's a possibility that your resume won't ever even be seen by the person that you want it to be seen by, right? Because if there's a company out there using LinkedIn, they're inviting people to apply using LinkedIn Quick Apply, you better believe they're also using some type of applicant tracking software to kind of categorize the people that are applying. And if you are, turning in an incomplete application, or your resume isn't reflective of what the qualifications are that they're seeking for the position, it's likely that your resume won't even make it in front of the real human that you want to read the resume. So that is that just sort of leads it all sort of, it's like a catch-22, right? It starts to become this like big spiral, right? Where you're just like, ugh, I'm frustrated, I'm sending out these applications, you're not getting a response, you're getting more of those auto rejection emails, right? Those can be super discouraging. It's like, a real human didn't even read this, right? A real human didn't even consider me. This is just like the software being like, nope, you don't meet our qualifications, like, no, thank you, right? And that just starts to become this like downward spiral where you're like getting more and more pissed off about your situation and sort of like more and more stuck. So that's what we want to try to avoid. Any questions in the chat so far, Brandi? Okay, this is a good moment to pause. So I just want to double check. So what can you do? What can you do to counteract this tendency to just be upset and frustrated, and then more upset and frustrated when things aren't going your way? So we're going to consider a few different things to kind of take a pause, right? So we really encourage you, when you are in this moment, when you're just like having a bad day, right? There's some things you can do to diffuse that frustration, right? So sometimes those angry applications come from a place of just like, oh, I got in a fight with my boss, or I got some really, some feedback at work that really pissed me off. And then you kind of have this feeling that you want to come home, you just want to work somewhere else. So you're going to send out some applications, right? So instead of like immediately going to your employer or immediately kind of taking those steps to like take action and like get a different job, you want to try to do things to diffuse that frustration first. This also, taking a pause on applications can be really important when you're in it for the long haul. Like that client that I just mentioned that got her dream job, she had been job hunting for 9 months and was in a position where she had just had to move states and move home to live with her mom because she was running out of money. She was in this place of really a really strong scarcity mindset, really scared about what was going to happen, really discouraged about how long this had been taking her. So for her, what I was encouraging her to do is take a pause on the application for like a while, right? At least a week, right? Clear your head to be able to reconsider what you could do differently. So you want to find different ways to sort of reframe your situation, and sort of invite new energy, invite new focus into your brain so that you can look at things differently. Okay. So here are a couple of different things you could do. We're thinking about ways to get creative, ways to challenge yourself, and also ways to realign with your values. Okay. And there are a lot of benefits to doing this, right? So we'll go through some ideas of what you might be able to do, but just sort of shifting like the way you're using your brain to do something different and take a break, kind of step back, can really benefit you in a lot of ways. So you can, by trying new things or doing things that you really love to do, you can boost your confidence, right? If you're just in this place of like being discouraged and only focusing on applying to jobs, that's continues to be more and more discouraging. If you take a break and you say, oh my God, I really love riding my bike, and you go ride your bike, and you're like, wow, I'm so good at riding my bike. This is something I really love to do, right? That gives you a surge of confidence. It also gives you new ideas. So just getting out and doing something different can really help you kind of just like get a different perspective, which can be helpful. Just generally increasing energy levels, that kind of thing is so important at this time of year, especially in the Pacific Northwest. We're inside, it's cold, it's dark, it's really easy to just kind of like the environment around us is like inviting us to be a little bit like, just kind of down generally. Or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I feel sort of just like angsty and down during the winter. So like, how can you increase your energy? How can you improve your focus? And then most importantly, if you are taking a break, you're going to come back and you're going to have some clarity. You're going to feel more empowered, and hopefully you'll feel a bit more excited, right? Because you will have kind of shifted your focus to consider things that might be a better fit. So these are some suggestions that Brandi has for getting creative, which I really like. I like this idea of just the simple thing to like go on a walk around your neighborhood. And you might do that a lot, but how can you switch things up, right? So maybe you do that by focusing on like how many blue things you could see, or count how many like maple trees are in your neighborhood, right? Or just something where you're like paying attention to different details in a way that's kind of going to jolt you out of your routine. I love making vision boards. This is my favorite thing to do. I do it every year at the beginning of the year. What are some things that you're excited about? So it could be thinking about work. It could be thinking about, like things you love to do day to day. It could be like, I love just imagining myself like 1 year from today, what are some things that I hope to have happened in my life, right? And you're bringing all of those things together, and you can draw, or you can cut them out of magazines and collage and just kind of put everything together in one space where you can see it. You can get creative and be a photographer. You can try a new craft. You can visit a new place. So there's lots of different things you can do to kind of get out there and get some new energy. You can also challenge yourself to do something new. So this could be as simple as trying a new recipe, right? What's something different that you haven't done? You can try a new sport. I'm considering trying roller derby just to like get out there and do something different, right? Something I've never done before. You could learn something new. You could practice a language. You could take a class at a community college. You could, even just something as simple as learning how to play a board game. All of these things are you're using your brain in a different way, and you are like doing things that are reinforcing positive feelings about yourself because you're challenging yourself to do something new and different. And oftentimes when you're successful at that, it's going to just make you start to feel better about your general sort of trajectory that you're headed down. Okay. And finally, just this can be a really important time to reflect and sort of realign with your values. Okay. So if things aren't working, if what you've been doing hasn't been working, if the job that you're doing currently is a place that is not fulfilling, that work is not fulfilling to you, then this is actually like a really amazing opportunity to stop and reflect and figure out what would be something that would make you feel more fulfilled, what would be more in alignment with you, instead of just like rapid fire jumping into the next thing. And I can tell you from personal experience, there was a moment in my career when I was so burnt out from a job I had been doing. I quit my job not knowing what I was going to do next. And rather than taking the time to be really intentional about my next move, I felt scared, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I just jumped into sort of the next job that came along, right? It was not something that I was super intentional about. And then I was very unhappy in that job, right? Fast forward a year or so, and I just was like, this is not the right fit. So had I taken some time to reflect on my values, I think I would have been better prepared when I was making that shift away from that place of burnout. So what are some things that motivate you? Are you motivated by your family? Are you motivated by certain causes? You know, what drives you when you get up every day? And it doesn't just have to be like, oh yeah, I have to pay the bills. That's obviously a big factor here for many people when they're thinking about their work. But if we can align your work and not just have it be about paying the bills, but it can also be in alignment with the other things you really care about, that can be really powerful. What are some things you need in a new job, right? We were talking before about how, you know, maybe the risk is if you're rapid fire applying, if you're sending angry applications, you might not find an employer that actually is paying you enough or has the benefits you need or has the schedule you need. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of characteristics that go into the culture of a workplace. What are some of those things that are really important to you? And you can actually like write those all down and take some time trying to prioritize them. So then when you're going out and you're looking for jobs, you can say, okay, cool. Like I really am looking for, you know, I'm looking for a company that prioritizes inclusivity. I'm looking for a company that prioritizes transparent communication. I hate being micromanaged, and I do not want to work for an employer where I feel that that's going to be part of my role. So I'm going to avoid that at all costs, right? So that you're setting yourself up for success in your next role. Even just things like taking a break from technology, doing a little meditation, like kind of just tuning in with yourself, reading your favorite book, talking to a friend. Really important to find, you know, you can talk to someone about their friendship. You can rely on your friends and family as a place to kind of like bounce ideas off of them. You can oftentimes find people in your community that are really positive people to vent to. And I guess what I mean by that is like when you are struggling with your job search or you're struggling with something that's going on with work, find someone who's going to not just reinforce that negativity, but is actually going to like challenge you and help you kind of work through that and figure out what your next steps are. But definitely this is a great like turn to your community to help like realign what you are what you're looking for. And then I think the other thing is just generally taking the time, you know, if this spurt of angry applications was driven by something that was happening at work, you can take this time to reframe what was going on for you at work. So like, was there something that you could have done differently in that situation? Is there something you would rather be working on? Is there something in the situation to be grateful for? You know, is there, could having a conversation with your manager, or your supervisor, you know, help you work through what was going on? That just being able to sort of reflect on what got you to that place of like feeling so discouraged in the first place. Yeah, okay, cool. So once you've taken a pause, so for some, you know, for some of us, again, this can be just like, I'm angry about what happened at work. Instead of getting on the computer and sending off rapid fire applications, I'm going to take a walk around my neighborhood to like diffuse those feelings of frustration, be more centered before I come back and take action. For some of us, that can be, I've been job hunting for 9 months. I'm in a really bad place. I'm going to take a week off to just power myself up by doing things I love, trying new things, using my brain in a different way. Okay. So once you've done that, what are some things that you can do? Right. So you can then take empowered action. There are steps that you can take. You can explore solutions to what was happening originally in this situation. You can get curious about other careers, and we'll talk about kind of how to do that. And then once you've sort of figured out where you want to be headed, you can apply effectively rather than just sending out those applications willy-nilly. Okay, so the first thing to do, and what I was talking about before, is you can actually use this situation, this place of frustration and anger, to improve your current situation at work. So you can, after you've taken that time to reflect on the problem that you've been facing, you can come to a conversation with whoever it was, whether it was your boss or a colleague, or, you know, the situation could obviously vary. But the relevant person, you can come and bring solutions, right? So if you come with, you know, here's the problem that I'm facing, here are some solutions that will help me. Are you open to exploring those options with me? And I think that this can be an opportunity to use a really frustrating situation to adjust what you're doing day to day and actually improve your experience at work. It takes courage to and not every job, not every manager, you know, sometimes we are truly in a kind of a toxic work environment where this might not feel like a safe thing to do. But if you are in a position where you are, you know, feeling comfortable to come forward and talk about what's going on, it may just be that, you know, your manager can't see inside your brain. It may just be that they had no idea you were feeling so frustrated, and they're perfectly willing to help you shift your responsibility or accommodate whatever your needs are in this situation that had you so frustrated to begin with. But it's really hard to have that productive conversation in that moment of feeling so angry and frustrated. So that's why it's important to take that pause and kind of refocus your brain. The other thing to do is just get clear about what you want in a job. So, you know, what we think about when we're career coaching is like when you're trying to apply for a job, if you don't know what you want, how can the person across from you, like the person interviewing, how can they help you get there, right? It's really challenging if you're not clear about what you want and need from a job. It's really hard for other people to help you down that path, be it someone who's interviewing you or just someone in your community that you're looking to for support. So if you're really struggling with knowing kind of what you want to do in your career, you can try informational interviews. And this was something that helped me a lot in my experience. So I was in that moment of burnout. I'd been working in the same job for 5 years. I was just in a really kind of dark place and I needed to get out of there. And so what I did, I had no idea what I was going to do next. I just felt like, you know, I had sort of stumbled into this role I had been in. It didn't feel like I came there from any place of intentionality. And I just I had no idea like where to head next in my career. So I gave myself sort of a time frame, and I said, okay, I have 6 weeks, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get to know as many people as I can. I want to meet cool people who are doing interesting work. Okay. And what that looked like was just inviting people. This was pre-COVID, so we did actually meet in person, but this was inviting people for just like short little coffee dates and expressing interest in their career and asking them if I could ask them some questions about their career path and, you know, what got them to where the point that they're at today and what they do and don't like about their work, so that I could really get an understanding of what's available, like what opportunities actually exist out there, and also determine what I wanted, right? So sometimes there's so many different jobs out there. There are so many jobs. I hear all the time about jobs I've never even dreamed of before, right? So it may be that you just don't, like, every informational interview can open your eyes to something you've never considered before. It can also help you understand, like, oh no, that's not the pathway I want to go down, right? I thought I wanted to work at XYZ company, but now hearing what this person has to say about their experience, I'm having second thoughts, right? And so it can help you kind of focus your energy based on what you're learning from other people. The other really important thing about informational interviews is, like, this is where in a dream world, my goal would be that people would never have to use a resume or cover letter to get a job, right? And the way that they would do that is by making connections with people, and those connections would lead to them getting a job naturally, like an organic thing where someone says, oh, I just met Grace. She has X, Y, and Z skill. I know we're looking for that in our new hire. Hey, Grace, do you want to interview for this position? Right? That actually happens. And that client that I mentioned that had been job hunting was really discouraged after 9 months. The way she got in the door to her dream job was she met someone who knew the CTO at the company that she wanted to work at. So she had an informational interview with someone who was the chief technology officer, and that person is the one who then got her in the door for an interview. It had nothing to do with her sending in a resume. It was not a quick apply. It was, she did not send her resume and cover letter in. She went directly to a person who worked there, and that person is who connected her. So this can really expand your career opportunities, and can also just be, it's like inspiring. It brings in new energy. It brings in new ideas, things you've never considered, things to get excited about. And it can really help when you're in a kind of a discouraged place, to bring people around you to kind of support your job hunt. So I can't speak highly enough about informational interviews. And then the final thing is to apply effectively. And the way that you do that is by tailoring your resume. Brandi calls it the 5-minute resume approach. Okay. And so the 5-minute resume approach, instead of just sending the same resume to everything and knowing that it's not going to be a good fit for everything you're sending it to, if you put a little bit of work in up front, you can actually make it very easy for yourself to send tailored resumes. The way that you do that is by creating something that's called a comprehensive resume. So this is a document that has your entire work experience, everything you've ever done professionally, all of your volunteer experience, all of the education you've ever received, right? Everything that would go on a resume, and then some. It's like everything you can possibly get down on, well, not on paper. I put it in a Google Doc. So my comprehensive resume is one big Google Doc full of a mishmash of everything I've done. Okay. Then you take some time coming up with those detailed bullet points and actually putting in the work to edit that comprehensive resume document, right? So thinking about, what was the result? What were the impacts that you had in the roles that you've done previously? What did you accomplish? What did you do differently from other people that sets you apart? Capturing that in your resume So you have this really, it's going to be dense, it's going to be long. It's nothing that we would ever send off to, you know, an actual application because it's too long for someone to read quickly. But then what you can do is when you find a job you want to apply for, you copy that document, right? You make a copy, and then you can delete everything that isn't relevant, right? So you're looking at the job posting, you're looking for the qualifications they ask for, and you're going to go through and you're going to make sure that what is on that resume, what you leave there, aligns with what they're asking for. And that process of going through and deleting is so much quicker than having to like try to rethink everything and rework resume bullet points. Okay. And that makes you, you know, you're taking that, it's more empowered action because you are, you can feel confident that you're actually reflecting experience that's relevant to that particular position. That's so much more effective and so much more likely that you're actually going to get called back for the job, right? Called back for an interview. So really, you know, taking the opportunity to think about how you can shift the situation at work, right? Doing informational interviews and then tailoring resumes are all different things that you can try to just, you know, it's like when you're in this like place of frustration, it's like, what is one variable that you can shift? How can you change your trajectory by 1 or 2 degrees to get yourself headed in a different direction, right? And it doesn't have to be this big pivot. It doesn't have to be a huge change. It can just be something little, you know, a little thing to bring like a burst of energy or a new perspective or doing something slightly different. And that can actually have a really big impact, a really big positive result on your job hunt. Okay. So I will hand it back to you, Brandi.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruthie. I have been answering questions in the chat, but there was one on here that I wanted to bring back and talk about in person. Malone, I'm going to ask a clarifying question really quick, if you don't mind unmuting yourself for just a second. On your question, you asked, people are having a hard time hearing tone in text. Do you mean yourself or the recruiter or hiring manager?
For the applicant. Like a really poignant example is like the Chris Rock slap thing. Like if you're a person who doesn't pick up on how what you're saying might be conveyed, or how like if you're getting like a brush off email or something and you're not getting it, like that sort of thing.
Yeah, great questions. I have a couple things here. So number one, invite someone into your circle to be a second set of eyes and ears for you, if you will. Someone who you think has maybe a different perspective from you, or even like a higher EQ opportunity. Inviting them in to read that email or to kind of brainstorm with you about what it might mean would be really helpful. This is also where a coach could come in and be really helpful, or a mentor. The other thing that I would recommend is use technology to your benefit, right? We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. And for some of us, hearing tone and understanding idioms or phrases, you know, like I have some friends that are on the autism spectrum, for example, and I know that there are certain phrases that they take literally when most people mean them as like an expression, right? This is where a friend can help, but also technology is huge. So if you're not familiar with ChatGPT, if you're not familiar with AI, it's making its way around, and I highly recommend utilizing those services. So that can look like getting onto ChatGPT, putting something like your cover letter or your resume into it, and then asking it to make whatever you're trying to say more friendly or more approachable is an option. The other thing that you can do is, if you're familiar with Grammarly, I actually use it on my computer. They have just the basic membership. It's completely free. Not only is it a great way for you to spell check and your grammar and all of that, but you can also do an upgraded option. I don't know the cost of it because I don't pay for it, but you have the option to allow it to, again, use AI and convert something into a more friendly tone, or a more relaxed tone is another way you could put into that. That might help with like being perceived as angry or hostile. You may just be someone who's very matter of fact, and that's okay. But use those technology tools to your advantage. It might help. Or like I said, get someone to kind of be that second set of eyes or ears for you.
Can I pop one more question on top of this?
For sure.
I'm seeing that you have Clifton strengths on your display. Is there a way to, if you have done the strengths finder and everything, to use those in this process?
Absolutely. Clifton Strengths, for those who are unfamiliar, is an assessment that is provided by Gallup. It's got over 50 years worth of research, and in my opinion, it's one of the most tailored assessments out there for individuals. If you have never taken it and you're interested, you can reach out. I'm happy to get you a reduced rate to have you take the assessment. Your report will give you some insight into how you operate. So for example, if you look at my screen, you're going to see my top 5. My number 1 and number 2 are strategic and futuristic. I play in the future and planning all the time. So I use that to my advantage, right? When I was job searching, I leaned into that strength and I got a calendar out and I made a plan for where I was going to apply, how I was going to do it, what time I was going to spend, right? If you are someone who, I don't know what your top strengths are, Malone, so I can't really speak to that, but looking at your top strengths, thinking about through that report that you get when you take that assessment and how you might be able to leverage your strengths versus focusing on maybe the lower ones that are lower on your 34 report or your for your Clifton strengths. The other thing you can do, YouTube is a great resource. So if you have that assessment and you go to YouTube, Gallup puts out free little quick clips where they talk more in detail about your strength. So that might be also something to look into if you know your report, Malone, and just to kind of see, get some different perspectives. There's also a lot of podcasts out about that as well.
Could you, again, could you use that with the things that you are not as strong in to like figure out how to focus, like what you're writing on your apps and things like that to, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Is there a strength that you're specifically thinking of right now, for example?
No, I'm
okay.
One of my my weaknesses is I'm not very concise. So
okay.
So basically I'm just going to say no at this point.
Okay.
Can I chime in, Brandi?
Yeah.
Because so one thing is like, I think that this can be super helpful because I know for me with Clifton Strengths, it was really helpful in validating feelings I had about things that I didn't like to do. So for example, Brandi talks about how her top, it's funny because her top strength is strategic. I think my very bottom strength is strategic. So
we work together.
Yeah. So it's just, but it's these things where I always found when I was in situations where I would have to kind of like, just, it's exactly what Brandi loves to do. Like think about the future and like make plans and like, you know, big vision stuff. That always felt like a really uncomfortable zone for me in my work. And I don't feel fulfilled when I'm doing that type of work. I'm someone who actually likes to take the big ideas and break it down into like the tangible steps and like help people think through how they're going to execute something. So where I found Clifton Strengths to be super helpful is then it's sort of not a red flag, but it's just a warning to me if I'm looking through job descriptions and they're asking for people who really want to be strategic thinkers, right? That's not going to I'm not setting myself up for success if I'm focusing on applying for that role, because I know deep down that that type of work doesn't make me feel that great, right? Instead, you know, you can look at what your top 5, your top 10 strengths are, read through your report and sort of get an understanding of, you know, yeah, is that type of thing, do I really love doing that type of thing? Like I'm a learner. That's one of my top strengths. I love doing this type of thing where I'm sharing information with other people. Okay. So finding it helps you just kind of focus your job search and know like, okay, yeah, this thing wouldn't be a great fit for me.
Great question, Malone. Did that answer what you're looking for? Perfect. Awesome. Most of the other questions, Ruthie, I answered in the chat. Are there any other questions that we have or any further expanding that we need?
I think when I was job hunting after losing a job that I had had for 20 years, you know, you definitely are overwhelmed, like what's going to happen, you know, what's my future, all that. And I did that bit of that. I just kept applying. And, you know, I thought, why do I have to keep changing my resume like this, you know? But the longer I went and the less responses I was getting, I said, you know, I need to rethink this. I need to do this smarter. And yeah, it's work to redo your resume for each job application. But why not spend that little bit of time to maybe, you know, get results rather than just doing that, you know, generic resume to everybody, which, as you mentioned, often the ATS doesn't even get you to the recruiter because, you know, there's 500 people applying for a job. They've got to narrow it down somehow. And most major companies do use some sort of AI, you know, to go through resumes that, you know, people obviously have just thrown out there and they're hoping, you know, that they land. So you guys have, you know, really given a lot of great ideas and, you know, living through it yourselves both, obviously. And even like I say, myself, I can relate to a lot of things you're saying. Being a job seeker is a job. Like that's, you know, trying to find work. That's like a full-time job. And even like our full-time jobs, right? We get like some PTO. We get some time to pull back and say, you know what, I just need a break, right? And I think that, you know, even one gentleman said, well, you know, he's on unemployment. He can't, you know, he doesn't have the option of taking a week off. But I think even if we take an hour, you know, even if we just take a half a day or something, to just refocus, you know, get our energy back. I think it's very, very valuable. And we can't kind of like, you know, think that it's not, because that's, you know, it's good for us healthy mentally, definitely, to take a break.
Yeah. And the other thing I will tell you, two things actually, as a recruiting program manager, for all of you here, you're going to get some tips and tricks that most people don't have. Number one, if you take half a day off and you go and do something else, I can, with 100%, like 100%, I can guarantee you're not going to miss an application in that half a day. The reality is, well, for equitable hiring practices, most applications need to be up 7 days or more. Some companies don't follow that. That's a whole other discussion. I could get a soapbox out about how frustrating that is. But companies do not put an application out for less than 24 hours. I've never seen it happen, ever. So with that being said, if you take half a day, trust me, tomorrow over breakfast, you're going to be just fine. If you need that reminder, message me on Instagram. I will send you that reminder. Deep breath, 12 hours, not going to make or break this process. The other thing I will say is if you are utilizing Monster, Indeed, LinkedIn, any of these big, huge job boards out there, they are phenomenal tools. I am not digging them. They're wonderful. They help you find applications in a much faster way. They do a great job of kind of compiling everything. Here's the deal. As a recruiting manager, if I posted a job to LinkedIn, within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the job, I could have over 30,000 applications. Okay. And I'm working for global companies. So the reason I'm telling you this is because, do you think I'm going through 30,000 applications? Absolutely. And that's in 48 hours. Absolutely not. That's not going to happen. So what you want to do is, if you use LinkedIn or you use Monster, or you use Indeed, and you find a job, I want you to get off that board, go to the actual company website and apply. Because in that same 24-hour period, even if it's a popular position, I maybe got 15 applications. So when I came in the morning with my cup of coffee and I'm like, okay, we're going to start reviewing. Am I going to go to the 30,000 on LinkedIn, or am I going to go to the 15 that I got in this one little bucket, right? On the back end, it all goes into buckets. So use that to your advantage. Go to the actual company website. If the company doesn't have that on their website, it usually means they're a smaller company. It's okay to apply through the job boards. But if you're applying to something large, go through those actual company websites. Another resource here in the Portland metro area, if you are job searching, is Max List, MAC''S list. It's a great resource. Mac and his team do a phenomenal job of really whittling down really great job opportunities here in the Northwest. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
That's an absolutely great tip about doing that, going to the company website and applying there. Yeah. So does anyone else have any more questions here?
I have a question there.
Okay,
Ms.
go ahead,
Corrigan.
Wilson.
My question pertains to tailoring your resume. That's my basic question. The concern I have is this here. When you're redoing your resume, what is the average, or maybe you could possibly even say a standard for the number of employers that you input on that resume? The reason why I asked this question is, I think it was Brandi, or maybe it was not Brandi, it was the other representative. She mentioned something about put all of your past job history, inclusive of you working as a volunteer. Okay, that being said, and I'm just doing this momentarily, I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone whose job is to review resumes. Okay, with me personally, again, this is on a personal level. I don't want to see anything other than a one-page resume. Okay. Yep. And that being said, I'm thinking, as it applies to my own resume, that I could possibly put a maximum of 4 past job representation or 4 past job histories as a maximum. Okay. Then comes into the question I have is that because I'm not actually certified, I'm not fully certified with the CompTIA yet, I could just delete that altogether. I'm asking you, Brandi and Ms. Corrigan, I'm asking you these questions, Grace and Brandi, because I want to know if I'm going in the right direction. Again, based on me wanting to put a maximum of 4 job representation and possibly deleting that reference pertaining to my potential certification with CompTIA. Just get rid of that altogether. Yeah. And then lastly, is connected to this question. When someone has some educational background, be it minor or be it advanced, be it a GED, associate's, PhD, or whatever, is it necessary? Is it really necessary to put that information on each application or each resume?
Great questions, Wilson. So I'm going to kind of go through this really quickly. I'm going to hit each one. So for your resume, your comprehensive resume, which is what Ruthie was talking about, is going to be a multi-page document. I 100% agree with you. A resume should never be more than 1 page. So get creative. You can make margins a little bit thinner. I recommend 0.75. I do not recommend going below a 10-point font on a resume. That is the lowest I would go. Now, in terms of the numbers of employers on a resume, I prefer a minimum of 2 to 3. If you don't have a lot of job experience, volunteer experience counts. So make sure you've got that on there. Now, if you have more than that, that's totally fine. You can put as many as you want. Most of my resumes, when I submit them, are between 3 to 5 positions on a resume. Now, you want to make sure your tailored resume, the one you're submitting, is relevant to the job experience and the job posting. So the way that you can get around that is at the very top where you put experience. You can do a chronological resume if you've had a couple places of employment. If you've had multiple, you can do relevant experience. That allows you to jump around with your job, but also highlight the things that are the most pertaining to that position. So that's to answer that question. That's kind of where I would go, Wilson, is, 3 to 4. I think you're fine. Your references, get them off your resume. that is valuable real estate, and you are wasting it by putting your references. We want to get you to the interview. If the employer is interested in references, they'll ask you. You can submit another piece of paper. Kick those off there. Don't waste that real estate. The other thing about education, absolutely, education always. I don't care if you have a high school diploma, a GED, a couple semesters in college, a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD. List that education. It is valuable. You have earned that right to list your education, especially if the job posting has that as a requirement. Your recruiter, that's the first thing they're going to look for. Do you have X level of education? And then from there, they will look into your experience. Great questions, Wilson. Anything else, Ruthie or Grace?
Thanks so much there. One last thing, if I may, Ms. Brandi.
Hmm.
Again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to help me with that. You mentioned fund. I can't remember if did you say 10-point fund or 11-point as a maximum?
As a
minimum.
The smallest I would go is 10. I
10,
prefer
okay.
11. As someone who used to look at resumes, 10-point font, you're pushing it. But 11 is great. If you can do 11, if you can go bigger than that, that's fine too.
Thank you so much again.
Yeah.
Wonderful. The only thing I would add to that is, sometimes people want to list all these jobs, right? Well, I want them to know I've done all these jobs, but really you should never go back more than 10, 15 years at the most. And if there is something really, really relevant to your job that you want to let them know, you know what, I do have a bit of experience, then it is okay to bring that one job into your resume. But really, it's got to focus on the applicant. You got to read your application, see what they're looking for, and then pick your top, 3-4 jobs if you've had a lot of jobs, and try to keep that resume down to, yes, 1 page, if you possibly can. So it is 11:04 here, so we are going to wrap it up. I sure appreciate, Brandi, you making yourself available today. I know you'd probably rather be sitting somewhere just drinking hot tea, but thank you so much for being here, and you as well, Ruthie, to jump in here on the last moment and save the day. This has been great. So appreciate you gals' time. Thank you, job seekers, also for being here. There's a bunch of information, as Brandi was saying, on her website. Looks like a great place to go and find some more great tools. And then you can also go to our jobsnow.org website and also glean from some of our past events there. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your sunny Tuesday here in Portland. And also, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I mean, it is right around the corner. And I'm sure we're already, doing the things we do at this time of the year. So enjoy and be well. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Very informative. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Brandi, Grace, and Ruthie. Thank you all so much.